Okay, here we are, the long-awaited Fresh and Fit response video. I wish I could say that it's taken this long because we have notes written up and we've spent a long time editing and discussing it, but in all reality, it's just hard to get us both in the same room with no kids around to tend to and some time to talk. So, found an opportunity, here we are. Now, let me just start off by saying that I have no vested interest in this. Like, people just, they hit me up in a questionnaire a couple weeks ago on Instagram. They just wanted to know my opinion. I hadn't even seen the episode, and I've never done a video like this. I don't plan on continuing to make videos like this, but all the responses and the opinions that I was hearing after seeing it, I was like, those seem a little bit skewed or off to me, so I felt like I could bring some value to the table talking about it. And then I had to show Laura, and I feel like having a female perspective, but just another perspective, is going to help a lot too. But so Wes Watson has me blocked on Instagram. I've never been involved with him in any capacity, so if I do defend him at all during this video, like I said, I have no vested interest in that. I also am not a Fresh and Fit subscriber. I was
gonna say, back up a little bit. If you don't know what Fresh and Fit is, like we didn't, Fresh and Fit is a podcast, and it's two guys, Fresh and Fit, that do these podcasts, and they usually have a panel of people on where they bring up topics, and each person is given a chance to talk about it or respond to it. Again, we've never listened to their podcast before, but of course Wes Watson, who does a lot of the same stuff that Taylor does, was on the panel recently, and so people were messaging him like, hey, did you see the podcast? Did you see it? And we're like, we don't even know what Fresh and Fit is. So once you got enough messages directing you towards it, we took the time to watch the YouTube video and see what it was all about. So that is what this video is in response to. So if you haven't seen it, I would say pause this, take a minute to go see some highlights on the Fresh and Fit podcast, and then come back.
See, I'm so glad that you're here because I didn't touch on any of that. Yeah, so not a Fresh and Fit viewer, subscriber, nothing. I hadn't ever seen any of their stuff. I've been following Wes Watson on Instagram and YouTube since 2017, really long time. And I pay tribute to him in a large part for changing my life. Just listening to some of his videos, the mindset stuff, watching him on the park bench, just talking about, real men have money, real men get up early, real men support their families in abundant ways. And that really just got me thinking, and that's what changed my life in large part as far as actions, habits, mindset, things like that. Where was I going to go with that though? But yeah, so if you haven't seen it, look it up. I think the full videos would be on Rumble, but there's snippets on YouTube, so you can kind of piece it together. The main parts I think that we'll talk about today are when Fresh and Fit asked the panel what their definition of success was, and then we'll touch a little bit on, well, I guess when they asked them their morning routine too, but also when they had the audience Q&A, there's some points that I want to bring up about that too. So starting off, Fresh and Fit asked the panel, they said, what is your guys' definition of success? And the guys started going. They went from left of the screen to the right. There was 3 guys that went before Wes Watson. The first 2, I don't know who they are. But the first guy started off and just said, success is being able to wake up in the morning and do whatever I want. And then he handed the microphone off. And I was like, okay. And then the next guy said something pretty similar, pretty boilerplate, boring, didn't really bring anything to the table, in my opinion. I look at this through the lens of a young entrepreneur, right? Or an early stages entrepreneur. If I paid to be at that event listening for some value, I don't think the first 2 guys brought any value.
No.
Then Yados went before Wes. He brought a good chunk of value. And then Wes got the microphone. He stood up and he just went for about 20 minutes or 10 or what. Maybe I'm exaggerating. But to me, Wes Watson, as Wes Watson's style as he was, which is a little aggro, you might call it, out there, abrasive, whatever. He brought a lot to the table, I thought. Mm-hmm. He said success is being ripped, rich, and rare. And then he explained what each of those meant to him in a way that actually kind of gave people an idea of like, oh yeah, in my mind, this makes sense. You want to be ripped, right? You want to have a body that shows that you put work into yourself. You put work into your mindset. You put work into your nutrition, because a physique is something that can't be bought. So you want to be ripped. You want to be rich. You want to be able to abundantly provide for your family. And you want to be rare. You want to have rare habits, because there's a bunch of people running around in this world that have habits that aren't rare. You'd consider them normal. And they're normal people with normal problems. And we've had normal people problems. And I'll speak for myself. I'll speak for you too. We don't like normal people problems. It's better to have a little bit higher level of problem in this life. What was your take on when Wes shared his version of success and kind of stood up and took over the show?
Yeah. So just backing up a little bit. Again, I don't follow Wes on Instagram. I know like a little bit about him and what he does, but that's pretty much the extent of it. I remember Taylor back in 2017, showing me his videos or whatever, like, you gotta listen to this. And I just couldn't do it, like he has a very rough, let's say, approach to things. But from a female perspective, if you can get past that and really listen to the words that he's saying, he does have a lot of good information to share. You almost can't watch the approach that he takes. You just have to listen to it and realize like he's got a lot of good knowledge. He's lived a life that his story can speak to a lot of people. And with that, I feel like he has a lot of good information that he can share with people. I mean, he's successful for a reason, I do think that like when he got up there that he shared a lot of stuff that if you were like from the standpoint that we were taking from it, a young entrepreneur or someone that wanted to start a business and you were sitting in that audience, I feel like he would have given you the best bang for your buck. He would have given you everything that you paid for, even the first time that he got up and talked about it. And I think it's true that being rich, ripped, and rare, his little saying, when people see that you invest in yourself, they know, oh wow, that person really values themselves. They spend the time to take care of themselves, like you said, like the food and stuff that they eat. And like, not so much the rich aspect, but the rare. I didn't really get his little rich, rip, rare thing until he really broke it down there. And when he talked about being rare and the habits that he has, a lot of people will like message you and stuff like, oh, I just don't have the motivation. And like, I never fully understood that either. And it's like, motivation now is dead to me. It's discipline that's going to get you through everything. You can be in a horrible mood that day and not have the motivation to do anything. But if for the last 6 months of your life, you've been getting up and you've disciplined yourself to act a certain way or get your body to move a certain way, you're going to do that whether or not you have the motivation to do that. And I think him speaking on that spoke volumes. And I believe he's where he's at today because of the discipline and the habits that he's created. So something that I wanted to touch back on when I had mentioned like Wes's approach to things and all of that, I feel like as they started out, like you said, the first two guys went and it was kind of like whatever, basic information, nothing groundbreaking. Yados went, provided a little bit more. And then with the way that Wes grabbed the microphone and stood up and the confidence that he had to just answer the question, I feel like immediately all the other guys on the panel went into defense mode, because I think a part of them knew that they couldn't stand up to anything that he had to provide. If you watch the video, you could look at all of them on the panel and know like, well, their bodies can't stand up to anything Wes has. So number one, that makes him intimidating. Two, based on other stuff that they've said on there, a lot of them don't have the money, so they went into full defense mode and started attacking that, well, money makes him a certain way. And it's like, it doesn't. He's lived it, he's worked for it, he earned it, he can talk about it. Like, that's only fair. And then the rare aspect, as soon as we get into talking about the morning routine in a little bit, you'll see why rare habits make you a strong individual. And so, like I had started out by saying, with his approach and when I started his videos, it's because I didn't really know much about him. But now, knowing him and how he approaches things, I feel like immediately people shut down or don't want to respond to them because he provides a lot that makes other people realize, like, wow, I can't stand up to what this guy has to say. And so they go in full defense mode and then attack him.
That's exactly what happened. Is I think the other guys went defense mode.
Yeah.
Because right when it went from Wes to the other guy, I think his name is Andrew. He's like, oh, I'll probably be the lone dissenter here. My definition's probably different than everybody else's. And first time watching this, I'm like, okay, what is he going to say? And then he said his definition of success is having a family. Now, I think that there's a level of success there when you have a family, but there's also like the poorest people on the face of the planet that have families. And so I was like, okay, that's a little weird. And then he brought Christianity into it, like right off the bat, which I'll get to later. But I'm like, okay. And then Wes is asking him, like, wait, do you have money? And the guy says, no, like only the $5 in my pocket or something silly like that. And then Wes asks a legitimate question. What's he doing here? And I was like, okay, dude, to me, once again, watching from the lens of like a new entrepreneur, I paid to be at this event. The guy's going to tell me that having a family is the definition of success and rejecting materialism is the definition of success. Wes brought up a good point. He said, if the material thing isn't an option for you, you can't write it off and say that it's not valuable. And I think that's totally true.
Me too.
If it's not an option for you, you don't get an opinion. And so back to the new entrepreneur lens, watching it, I'm like, what value is this guy providing in saying that his definition of success is having a family? And then he goes and says that even poor people experience days of wealth. We've been broke before, and I don't think that's true. Like, I remember telling you, I'm like, babe, we've got it all. Like, we've got beautiful, healthy kids. We have a great marriage, a great relationship. We are blessed. Like, I have a job, we have a house, we have a place to live in. I'm like, but we still got money problems and we got to figure those out. And I mean, you were less than 100 pounds stressed on our money problems. I would get sick to my stomach and have anxiety because I was spinning my wheels at this job that other people would look at and be like, oh, that's a great job. Like, and I'm like, dude, but it's not paying the bills.
To me, that goes back to what Wes said again. It's definition of success is success across the board. Yeah. So now I feel that because we fixed our money problem. That was like the last piece of our pie, and it didn't make us worse people. It's not all about money. No, it's not all about money, but like, it takes money to live. Yeah.
You can't deny that. And this guy's talking about, oh, he just we'll get into his morning routine and stuff like that later. But I mean, having a family does not define success, in my opinion. I thought that was a lame answer. And I mean, if you want to reject materialism, that's fine. But the way that they started bickering back and forth, I thought that, A, that didn't show much decorum on that guy's end.
No.
But also, like Wes says, if it's not an option for you, you don't get an opinion on it. Like, if you make a lot of money, you drive a nicer car. That's just how it is. I remember fixing my truck on the side of the road on my way home from work, not because I reject materialism in a car with a warranty. No, it's because I drove an old truck that had problems. And if it was an option for me to get a newer, better car with a warranty, I absolutely would have done it. It wasn't because of my rejection of materialism. And I mean, you can have a family on accident, you know? Like, there's no definitive like success to having a family. Now,
I do agree though. To an extent, there's a lot of people out there, women specifically. So this from the woman's standpoint that I can speak from it on, that would pay anything in the world to be able to have kids if a woman couldn't have kids. And I've seen girls, especially on social media, that would give their life to be able to have a kid. And so for them, I believe that if that was their missing piece to the puzzle, that would make them so successful. You know, that might push them into other avenues of their life. But do I think that that's the sole thing that would make you a successful person? I would have to agree with Wes. I don't.
Okay, check this out though. Well, and Wes is like super duper wanted a family for a long time,
yeah.
right? And so it is important to him,
yes.
and he doesn't devalue that. But check this out, especially your girl that you follow on social media, she wants to have her own kids.
She does, yeah.
Her and her husband have spent upwards of $1 million doing those in vitro. What do you call that? How would you describe
IVF. They will be starting round 7 of IVF.
And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars per try.
And that doesn't even include travel fees, hotel expenses for traveling across the United States to get these treatments done. I mean, I understand people value that greatly.
But the money aspect of success is not just so that you can wear a Richard Mille or drive a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
It's so that you can put your kid in a private school. It's so that you can own your own home and have peace of mind.
Yeah.
It's so that if kids is what you really want and IVF is the way that you're going to get them, it gives you that option. If your mom and dad are getting older and you have to put them into a retirement home, you can put them up somewhere nice. Like, money goes way further than the material things that you can buy. But people with money oftentimes have the option to have the private school, the parents in the nice home, or bring them into their home or whatever. But they also usually drive nicer cars and wears nicer watches. That's just how it is. You can't knock somebody with money for doing that. Now, Wes brought up a good point. He said if you have the money, then you can reject the materialism. Like I think Elon Musk lives a very minimalist life. But the dude's a billionaire, so he can do whatever he wants because he's got the option to do the alternative. Homeless people, they're probably the most materialistic, you know, but they have the least. I always love it when Wes says that. People are like, oh, well, it's all about the money with you. And he's like, you're the one that goes and spends 100 hours a week at this job that's not even paying your bills, taking your time away from your wife and kids. You're all about the money. Wes is in the position where he can take it or leave it, you know, and now I have that feeling a lot of times. Like if there's somebody that I don't want to deal with as a client, I'm not like, oh, please sign up with me. I actually have the opportunity now to be like, hey, I don't think I can help you, or I don't want to work with you, and not having to hound somebody for money or like really, oh, what's it going to take to get you to sign up? Hey, cool, bro.
Yeah.
Like that's freedom and that feels good. And I didn't have that before. So right. That to me, that's success. But so we'll move into the defensive part, right? He just starts accusing Wes of being materialistic. In my opinion, every time Wes fired back, it was totally legit.
Yes.
If it's not an option, you don't get an opinion. The guy asked him, well, who are you to say? And Wes said, because I've lived the lowest lows and the highest highs.
Yeah.
And I'm like, every time I'm like, oh, go get him. You know, because it's true.
Yeah. That
he gets to have an opinion on a lot of this stuff and he gets to teach people. And then they're just like, oh, if you give somebody an expensive watch, is that really helping them? And he's like, you must not know me. Wes doesn't give away expensive watches, but he'll give away the habits to where somebody has the opportunity to live a better life with their children and afford private school or things like that, or go buy a fancy watch. But Wes isn't giving people the stuff, he's giving people the habits. Now the other two guys that were trashing Wes, Mr. $5 in your pocket, what kind of value are you providing to anybody that's going to expand their knowledge, their mindset, or get them to where they want to be? What I saw on the podcast, nothing.
We literally just had a conversation about this the other day, and we were talking about his business and the growth and everything, and I had said to him, and I was like, you know, if you never decided to make this change for yourself, imagine the number of people that you helped whose lives would have never changed. And like, I put that in the aspect of Wes too. If he was in prison and just took the mindset of other people out there, like, I'm just going to sit here and rot and not change myself and just, you know, keep up with that lifestyle, whether people want to believe it or not, that man has changed thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of lives, because he made a choice to change his definition of success to become, as he says, ripped, rich, and rare, which in turn then has changed so many lives. And I feel like I can speak on that because Taylor stood in our kitchen one day and he didn't ask me, which I feel like is something that I want to touch on to a lot of women and wives out there. He told me for our family, to better our family, that he was making a choice and going to be trying this business venture. And because he made that choice now, hundreds of people out there now have had their lives changed. But I feel like people like that guy who are going to sit there and just say, well, my family's the definition of success, and it's fine that I have $2 and a couple quarters and stuff like that. You're never going to be able to help anybody, one, with that mindset, but two, with that money. You're never going to move past who you are and help anybody else in the room by saying, family's the definition of success. Okay, young entrepreneur, do something with that.
Take that and run with it.
I have $2. What is someone going to do with that? Okay, tell me how to invest that $2 and make millions. I bet you he couldn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I mean, you got to think too, like, when you have more money, you can help more people.
Yeah.
Like, when you have more money, you have the opportunity to go out to dinner.
Yeah.
So you can tip your waiter and waitress. You're buying more gas, which is in turn helping the gas station out. You might hire a babysitter, which is helping a young high school kid start saving up for college. I mean, when you make more money and have more money, you can pour it out into the economy. I pay somebody to wash our cars so that I have more time to spend working on client stuff and working on my business, which in turn helps the guy that washes my car be able to provide for his family, right? I mean, it's not a selfish endeavor to try and better yourself and to make more money, because we donate money to our church. We donate money to ministries. Like, if you don't have money to donate, you can't help anybody. And that's why Wes says that being broke is the most selfish thing you can do, because you're always laser focused on yourself and making enough money to scrape by. But if you make more than that, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah.
Right? So with abundance comes the ability to help other people. It's not all about materialism.
I will point out, if you haven't watched the Fresh and Fit podcast yet,
which you should.
You definitely should. It will be a little controversial, and they're controversial. There's probably things that Wes will say that might ruffle your feathers a little bit, and that's okay, because it did mine too, and I'm like, okay, how would I have approached this? Now, there is some name calling in there. I get it. There's probably a little bit of ego in there. But I'm just like going back and remembering like what I heard of it. And yeah, he calls him like he's got boobs and things like that. But if he worked out and he invested the time that he says he invests in his family into himself, Wes couldn't say any of those things to him. He could sit there confidently and be like, what are you going to attack me for? Okay, I don't have as much money as you. I don't have as much money as you. But he couldn't be offended that Wes was making fun of his body because he was taking care of himself. And when you take care of yourself, there's something about you that feels good. Like, you feel better about yourself. And then I think when you feel better about yourself, you put more of yourself out there and help other people.
I think Yado said it the best. He said, to be present, you need to be proud of your presence.
Yes.
And all that dude did, once Wes started digging into him, was act childish.
Yeah,
start hurling insults about prison, RAPE, about his bald head, about his tight pants. Like, he just started acting childish. And I mean, Wes called him names. Sure, I don't support name calling, but Wes didn't say anything that wasn't true. Okay? Now, am I going to act like that towards somebody? Probably not. It's not really my style. I don't think it's the right thing to do necessarily. But something that Wes says too is that love ain't lies. And by lying to someone, lying to a fat person, oh no, it's okay, you look fine, like, I'm sure you're not as bad as your doctor says. That's not loving. Loving them is saying, yeah, you're fat and you need to change your habits. Otherwise, you're going to develop diabetes, kidney problems, heart problems, and probably die. And so that's something that a lot of people nowadays in this soft generation that we're growing up in, like, you're not a fat woman, you're a BBW. And like, women like dad bods. No, women don't like dad bods. Men owe it to themselves. They owe it to their families to be in shape, to be a provider, a protector, the things that God put us on earth to be. And when you disrespect your body, when you disrespect yourself like that, like, you don't bring anything to the table. But yeah, like you said, had he put in the work on himself, Wes couldn't have called him out for that. But also, like, people could probably take you more seriously.
For sure,
And
I think so.
I couldn't take that dude seriously for half a second once he opened his mouth.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't even notice his physique right off the bat. And as soon as Wes said something, I'm like, dang, he really does have 12-inch arms.
Yeah.
And then the dude next to him was just going right into it too. And then they went to the last guy, and he said something similar. But yeah, so for that segment, I really think Wes is the only one that brought any value to the table.
Yeah.
So then we get into morning routines, and they start from the other end of the spectrum. And the one guy, he said something about, oh, my morning routine starts the night before. Mm-hmm. Probably trying to act like Wes. I'm just helping people. I'm on my phone, and then as soon as I get up, I'm on my phone, and I just try to help as many people as I can, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. There was no morning routine there. You just get up and just get on your phone. Okay. And then they go to the next guy, and his response to what's your morning routine? Any creatives out there? And not just a guy that wears a fedora. So that was dumb. And he just said, be creative in the morning, and you won't be resentful of your job or your wife or whatever. Okay, that's profound. Still didn't answer like what your morning routine is. And then they go to the other guy. His morning routine is he plays video games with his kid, which Wes tagged him a little bit later on. He's like, video games are not helpful for kids in any way, which I agree with. If you want to spend quality time with your kids, that's fine. But staring at a screen going like this, I could think of better ways to spend quality time with your children. And then he says that he goes into reading, and he reads and reads and reads, and then reads some more. And Wes tagged him again on that and said, you don't need to read your 19th book. Maybe you should go to the gym. Maybe you should provide for your family. So what do those guys do all day? I don't even know. I know Wes's morning routine because I've watched him on Instagram for years till I got blocked. He's up at 2:45, 3 o'clock in the morning. He's going to the gym. He's eating nutritious food. And he's changing lives. He's coaching people. He's teaching people how to coach others, but he's also teaching people how to get fit and change their habits and get sober and get away from the vices like drugs and alcohol and strip clubs and just the things that are bringing them down. Nobody really answered like, what is your morning routine? But once again, I know that he has a solid morning routine, and I felt like he brought more to the table than these other guys did. So I had a question for you real quick, though. As a woman, looking at that panel of men, disregarding maybe Wes's antics or the abrasiveness, who would you choose? Who does your primal instinct tell you to choose as a partner? The guy that you know has money and can provide for you. The guy that actually looks good and has a physique, and I mean, maybe tight white jeans aren't your thing, but he wasn't wearing some wrinkly shirt from Old Navy that had 10-inch arms and tits. Who would you choose as a woman?
I mean, yeah. I mean, based on what they said, Wes or Yados. I mean...
Because you know they could provide for you, which as a woman is very important. Do you want to be with the broke guy, or do you want to be with the guy with money, if you have the option?
Yeah, I mean, obviously. So rewind. We've had conversations about this like in the past, you know, and for those that don't know, like, I grew up in Orange County. There is a lot of money in Orange County. And so when we would go out on Friday and Saturday nights, like, we would go to like really nice areas of Orange County and like go to the bars and stuff like that. And you could see those that had a lot of money there. The people that would show up in nice cars, or they're dressed nice in certain ways. They have money to spend there. But for me, like, I saw that and I'm like, okay, you probably drove mom or dad's car here. You're probably bought those clothes, or mom took you to Banana Republic or Nordstrom or whatever it was. And like looking at that, I'm like, you could never provide for me the lifestyle that I want. And I know that when we met, and like listening to the way that you talked about, one, how you take care of yourself, talking about the gym and how you ate was one of our very first conversations that we had.
The first, yeah.
And then after that, it was all about work and like how you conducted yourself and what your plans were for the future and what business moves you were going to make. And I just that alone, I'm like, that's someone that could provide for me. They're methodical, they're logical with how they plan things. He takes care of himself physically and how he feeds himself. I'm like, that's someone that would make sure that I was well taken care of too. Not just showing up and like, I drive an expensive car. Like, there's so much more that goes into it. But I feel like him talking, he proved that he has all those different qualities, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nothing was handed to him.
No.
But he also wasn't some guy that was okay with saying, all I have is the $5 in my pocket.
So then this leads into my next thing. And I do know that, like, a lot of women out there objectified or, you know, made, you know, that people look at them a certain way, whatever. Like, and I do respect that. But also, you know that the way that he conducts himself, that whoever he's with is going to conduct themselves and have a certain standard for themselves and be I don't know how to word it, like a...
What are you getting at? The fact that, like...
Because Wes makes a comment in there about, hey, let's pull up what their women look like. And they freak out about, like, don't objectify women, you know, whatever. But because I feel like it's touchy, because I know that there's women that think like you can't just put a woman on a screen and like that's all that she is, and I agree with that. But there is such thing as power couples, and I believe that they bring everything to the table. Like, there's something intimidating when you're, maybe not intimidating, but when you're at a restaurant or you're out somewhere and a guy that takes care of himself and he's well dressed with a girl that's beautiful on his arm and you can tell that she takes care of herself. When they walk in the room and people look at that, there's a reason why. They bring a sense of dang or wow or power to a room.
Yeah. I think something that I could probably add to this is probably where you're going with it. Like, if a guy is able to get the hot girl,
yeah,
that means that A, he's got something to give her.
Yeah.
Right? Well, it's usually three things. It's money, he can make her laugh, or the third one. But he brings something to the table for her, but also, like, he had the self-confidence in himself to go and talk to her.
Yeah.
Usually. I mean,
Yeah.
not to say that women can't approach men.
I mean, and I can speak on that because I was the one that approached you.
She was in my DMs,
So...
dude. That's how you meet in 2017. Yeah. But I was also confident enough in myself to hit you back up.
Exactly.
But also,
Absolutely.
like, I wasn't messing with twos. Straight up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't. And you weren't either. So, yeah, the other guys, all they want to point to is like, oh, well, you know, women aren't objects. And he said something about, like, I mean, he said, what did he say? That the chick's got upgrades too?
Yeah.
She's got some upgrades. But that was an option for me. And it changed her life. It made her a lot more confident because after kids, your body changes. You're used to having a certain amount of assets. You know?
I'm not saying, like, that was the path that I chose, and I had talked to you about it. So I'm not saying that Botox and lip fillers and a boob job is going to change your entire life. But if you're a woman out there and you're insecure about certain things and that's an option for you and that's going to make you feel better, then 100% I say go for it and try it out and do what's going to make you feel good.
Yeah, well, I loved her without that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I don't love you anymore because you have it, because you're not an object. Like,
yeah.
I love you for what's up here. But But yeah, for them to see Wes and his girls got the BBL and the fake boobs, like he said, like, and just say, oh, women aren't objects. Like, if it ain't an option for you, you couldn't get her anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we touched on the morning routine.
There was another direction that I was trying to like.
Oh, well, let's go there.
Go with
let's
it.
Go there. Hold on, let me do this.
Might have to pause.
No, keep going. We're rolling. This is raw. Where did you want to go with it?
I guess in a way, I think that partially them saying that, or when people say that, it's like an excuse. Like, unfortunately for him, the way that he looks and the way that he carries himself, I can't imagine his better part being that much better.
Right.
And I feel like when one person levels up in a relationship, to keep a healthy relationship, usually the other one does too. You're not gonna, or I should say most of the time, I don't know.
Well, I know what you're saying. And I wasn't going to bring any of this up until later, but apparently that dude's had like a pretty rocky past when it comes to women.
Okay.
And even the way that he's talked about women, because I found this guy. I found him on YouTube kind of by accident, and I watched his podcast, and I've got some bones to pick with that guy. He gets worse when you learn more about him than just seeing him for face value on Fresh and Fit, which is where I started, which is kind of where I'm trying to come from now, and then I'll talk about him more later and what I found out. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying, because like, as a person that doesn't take care of your body, doesn't at least have ambitions, right? You don't bring much to the table, and so you're either going to get how do I say this respectfully, a woman that doesn't have, the proper amount of self-esteem to require a man that has those things, right?
Right.
And I guess that's all that I need to say, right? You might be able to get a hot girl, but she might be like crazy, psycho, daddy issues, whatever, or maybe you're not. It's a success across the board. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but would I ever bring that up to somebody? Well, what's your wife look like? No, but I mean, it's important to Wes. So, and I would never take relationship advice from Wes. I think I could provide some. We have a great marriage, but he would never listen to me because I'm not.
I think partially where I was going with it is, if let's just take them for example. Like, you have someone like Wes who he has a great physique. He's wealthy, he's knowledgeable, all of that. If you took him and you imagine a partner for him, I hate to say it, but you're not going to imagine him with an overweight woman who sits on the couch at home and has no ambition. You're probably going to imagine him with something very similar to what he's got. He is like.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, going back to that, you think of that and you're like, dang, that's a power couple. And I don't mean that in like a bad sense, or that if you don't have any of those qualities, like you're not like, I know plenty of people that maybe aren't the most fit, but like they're very smart, they're intelligent people, they run their own businesses, things like that. But I do think, like, for instance, in the field that you're in, like, I couldn't imagine being married to you and like
being a fat slob.
Yeah. But then also too, for the health of our marriage, like, I just feel like that's something like you both then play an equal role, and like I have an understanding and compassion for your fitness schedule, and if you miss, and the importance that it makes up for you, just like I feel like you do for me,
Yeah.
And I feel like that makes like a healthy relationship.
Totally. Well, but we also understand what it does. It's not just for your body. Like, I remember you've had spells after kids and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Where you get worn out, you get tired. It becomes a habit of not working out, and your mental state just declined insanely.
And that's where I was going to go next, is that even if it's not all about fitness for you, and like maybe I'm going to ruffle some feathers for this, but I feel like recently I've been really working on it, and like how selfish it would be of you to not upgrade your mindset and the way that you think to match your partners. Mm-hmm. Because then I feel like if something does go wrong in your relationship or your marriage, like, you only have yourself to blame.
Yeah, and you're really dragging it down. There's an equally yoked
and just
type thing
tying
that needs
it
to
back
go down.
To the podcast, I can't imagine in their relationship having respect for a man that the first thing that he does is wake up and go play video games with his kids. Like, I'm sorry, but I don't respect that. Mm-hmm. Like, there's nothing
respectable about, I mean, the only thing that you could maybe say in his defense is like, oh, that's cool, you're spending quality time with your kids, but look at the example that you're setting.
Yeah.
You're fat, you're out of shape, it sounds like you're broke, whether you're lying or not, and then you're gonna sit and play video games with your kids. It's not a good thing to teach your kids.
Right.
This isn't how you live, you know.
I mean, because look at our kids. Like, you wake up and you go to the gym, and then if you don't get to do cardio at the gym, you come home and you do the cardio, and then we usually flip-flop and take turns, and then I go work out, and just the way that we eat. Our kids mimic that lifestyle at 6, 4, and 3 years old. You know, like, your kids absorb and take in every single thing that you do, and I just can't see. I mean, the reading, I think that's great. Like, if he really is reading and his kids see that, I think that's a great thing. But bring something else to the table, too, that your kids can see.
Yeah, I mean, you can't lie to yourself and say that, like, oh, because reading is super valuable.
Yeah.
It's super important.
Right.
I mean, some of the most powerful, the most wealthy, the most knowledgeable people say that, like, reading is very important.
I even think that Wes would agree with that. But if that's the only
all
thing
you
that
do,
he's doing, then, like Wes said, don't talk to me about stuff that I can't agree with you. If you can't come to me with all aspects, like,
right.
I mean, I get it.
Yeah. Yep. I feel like we're getting a little rambly.
We are.
We'll draw it back in. So the morning routine again was a joke. Wes kind of blew everybody out of the water with that. And this is a lot. Part of that is just coming from like what I know about his morning routine, and you can see it in his physique. Now let's move on to the questions. So when they did a Q&A with the audience, once again, right? It was the other guys saying, and the one guy, I think it was the first question that they got, he was like, you need to move. He told the guy he lived in Sheboygan, Wisconsin, let's just say. He lived somewhere in Louisiana. And the guy's like, you need to move. You need to go somewhere where there's more people, where there's more millionaires, where people kind of hold themselves to a higher standard, somewhere like Miami, where there's a lot of money, people are fit, and that's it. And we've heard that from like Tony Robbins, Grant Cardone, other people. You need to move. You need to make yourself uncomfortable. You need to get around people that are doing better. We've even talked about moving to an area where just out of this house, because I mean we have a great neighborhood, good neighbors, and everyone's doing okay. But if we moved into a neighborhood that was like, you know, it hurt a little bit more to pay the mortgage or to pay the rent, or like the neighbors had like way nicer cars, it puts you in a different mindset of like,
but like they say, you should never be the richest person in the room.
Right.
You know?
Yeah,
like,
you're a fool if you are.
Yeah.
But it changes your mindset. Like, wow, that is attainable. How did that guy do that? You know, and you see the work ethic that these other people are going to bring to the table, and you're going to mimic that. You're going to be like, geez, like that's what it takes to, I mean, money aside, like to just do better for your family. Like, okay, guess I need to up the ante myself. And so it is important. So that was a good piece of advice that the guy gave. And then some of the other guys stepped in, and it was just, once again, it was value that I would never pay for, right? It wasn't worth it. And then Wes got up and he chewed the guy out. He said to the kid, I call him a kid. He was like in his 30s, but he's like, you need to lose weight. You need better shoes. But the thing that he said to him was, I'm not pulling you down. I'm calling you up to something that you are capable of. You just don't believe that you're capable of it, or that you need to be capable of it. I'm trying to level you up. And he gave the kid some good advice. It was abrasive, but it was good advice. And yeah, I didn't get that from any of the other guys that were answering questions.
Yeah.
They rambled. It was super basic. You should move. but that's where it ended, you know. And Wes said, he's like, dude, he's like, people thought they were hot in Miami until I got there. And he's like, there's not even movies like this where he rolls up in a Bugatti and his armed security is in 2 Rolls Royces, like in front of and behind him. That's true. Nobody rolls up like that. And so for this kid to tell him, I'm at the top of my rung, the top rung of the ladder where I'm at, he's like, you're nobody, dude, and you need to ditch that attitude that tells you that you're somebody. And I think that's important for everybody, is ditch that ego. I've seen ego ruin people. I'm watching ego ruin people as we speak, and I don't even think they realize it.
100%.
Does Wes have an ego? Maybe, but anybody that complains to me about Wes and says, oh, he's so egotistical, I'm like, geez, okay, well, if there's anybody on planet Earth that earned it, it's probably that guy, because he works harder than anybody that I've seen, and he's got results to show for it, you know?
Yeah.
What did you think about the questions?
No, I think that it's true, and I think that people never want to hear when people say, oh, I really want to work on myself, I want to bet on myself, work out. No one wants to hear that, but 100% it's true. You start moving your body, you start working out, you start to look better. Once you look better, you look in the mirror and you start to feel better. Once you start changing your mindset because you feel good, you have this confidence that you know, hey, I can change this. Anything around you can change, but you have to break past that barrier.
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way to change your mindset is by disciplining your mind. And the easiest way to start disciplining your mind is by hitting the floor daily, doing push-ups, doing burpees, doing something hard. It's exercising the gratitude of setting your alarm earlier. We're both up by 4:30 in the morning. I get up at 4, she gets up at 4:15, 4:30. That's gratitude for a new day, a new opportunity. And then it also takes discipline to do it. It gives us a little bit of time to hang out before the kids get up, because if you're married with children, you know that it's hard to spend quality time together when the kids are up and running around and need stuff.
It's such an overplayed saying, but people say, like, if it wasn't hard, everybody would be doing it. And that's why not everybody looks good, because it is hard. It's hard to discipline yourself to do that every day. But once you've said, dang, that was hard and I did it, you did that early in the morning, you can then do anything for the day, because you're breaking past that mindset that you can't do something. Yeah. And I mean, just to kind of get back into what I was saying, it's like getting up early, that's discipline. Working out, that's discipline. Controlling your eating takes discipline. I would argue that food is more addictive than any of the drugs out there. Whatever, take that with a grain of salt, but I mean, think about how easily available they are. Nobody's going to get you in trouble if you abuse it, right? Driving through McDonald's a couple times a day, and like, it's so accessible, but also like, people, they can't. If they have it in their cabinet, they cannot control themselves to not eat the snacks. And then doing that over time, not being disciplined, it leads to a physique, it leads to a lack of energy, it leads to complacency, just the opposite of what I'm talking about, right? So if you can control your eating, use self-control there. If you can control what you do with your body, put it through some hard stuff, that's what's going to change your mindset. And changing your mindset is what ultimately changes your life. Because did I think that I was going to be capable of running a business the way that I am? No. Was I capable of it back then? No, not in the capacity that I am now. It took that work of changing myself, you know, the work that I was putting in was working on me, changing me and making me capable of doing the things that I'm doing today. That's what it takes. And I've said it in some of my Instagram reels before, like, is everybody capable of success? No. Everybody is not capable of success. It takes being where they're at and making those changes to their daily habits and their mindset to become somebody that is capable of success. Everybody's capable of doing that. But taking someone right from where they're at, it's like winning the lottery, right?
they usually just blow the money. Somebody's rich family member dies. They get a bunch of money. Most people just blow it because they don't have the discipline. Like if I just gave you, arms and abs, you'd probably go to the club. You'd probably go to Vegas and just be showing off for all the girls, drinking alcohol, eating food. And then boom, before you know it, you blew that body that was a gift, Okay. So we got the Fresh and Fit podcast part of it out of the way. There's two things that I want to touch on. I want to touch on, this is kind of a twofold. All the little comments that were up in the corner that were coming in on the live stream, that, and then the people that hit me up in the DMs. So every comment that I saw popping up on the live stream, and you can see it if you watch the Fresh and Fit thing, it's all these people complaining about Wes. He's so emotional. He needs to shut up. He needs to sit down. I don't know why everybody was so mad. Because for real, I said it to you. If I paid to be at that event and Wes wasn't there and those other guys got to talk, I would be asking for a refund. Like, there was no value that they provided. But everybody was all irritated that blah, blah, blah. So that was part of what made me want to record this video in the first place, was just share, like, this is what I see. I see Wes as providing value for everybody, As abrasive as he came off, people were calling it emotional. He's just animated, And he even said, they're like, hey, Wes, we need to calm down. He's like, maybe if me acting like this and dropping F-bombs, like if that was going to be a problem, then don't invite me next time. And I think that's totally true.
I think it's fair too. And if you know Wes, you know that he wasn't just putting on a show. That's just literally how he is.
Literally how he is.
If you can't handle it, then you shouldn't have invited him on.
Yeah, so I don't know what everybody was crying about, and it started early too, before he even really got a chance to like get good and going. So I was looking at that just like, what? But then a couple other people had hit me up in my DMs on Instagram asking how I felt about it, and they were all up in arms about, I'm really mad at how he went after those two Christian dudes. And me being a Christian, I'm like, oh, what? Like Wes went after some Christian dudes? What? Let me watch this. And I was like, yeah, everything he said was true. And those guys made Christians look like fools, in my opinion. They looked like idiots. I mean, I don't know. I could get into my Myron Golden era and talk about how, the Bible talks abundantly about wealth and prosperity and abundance. And those are not bad things. Even materialistic things, right? Like Abraham, Solomon, Job, like all these guys, God blessed them a lot. David or Daniel, both of them. Like every good and perfect gift comes from God, and sometimes that's money, sometimes that's material stuff. It's about what you do with it, right? And so these guys were all up in arms. Oh, I didn't like how he attacked those Christian guys. I think that Wes did them a service by talking to them the way that he did and telling them those things. Hopefully they'll take that and swallow their pride about it and be like, you know what, I really do need to change some of my habits. I should start putting more work into my physique so that I bring more of a stud home to my wife and kids. Like how disrespectful to you would it be if I just brought you some fat, lazy slob?
Yeah.
Like, not a provider, not a protector. I mean,
yeah, people have, like, I feel like they've asked you, like, in your questionnaires and stuff before, like, how does she feel about you, like, getting to the gym and stuff? And I'm like, I respect that. Like, I think that it's so good for your mental state and your body and stuff like that to do something that's going to push you.
Yeah. And I've tried a lot to make it possible for you to work out, to be able to go to the gym. I've offered to watch the kids so that you could drive to the gym because I've seen the mental shift that it's provided for you.
Yeah.
And it's massive, massive. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was I found that guy in that blue collared shirt. I'm pretty sure his name is Andrew. I'll put it down here on the YouTube video. I'll type it out. I'll give you his YouTube channel. It's called The Crucible. This guy, now, hear me out. There's nothing inherently wrong about drinking alcohol or smoking cigarettes, and being a Christian, in my opinion. The Bible says that drunkenness is a sin Doesn't mention cigarettes, but some people make the argument that your body's a temple. You shouldn't do that. Do I think that God's going to smite you because you're smoking some Marlboro Reds? No. Is gluttony a sin? Overeating and being out of shape? I think they go hand in hand. Yes. And so he's out of shape. But I saw on YouTube a podcast that came up, and I clicked it while I was doing research for this video. And that guy in the blue shirt is sitting in his podcast studio drinking alcohol and chain smoking cigarettes. And I'm like, okay, not exactly the example that I would want to set for my children as a Christian man, right? And like you don't even have the self-control to wait to smoke till you get outside. Like that's just gross.
Yeah. And
then I talk a lot about my content, right? And my Instagram content is clean, like 99% clean. I try not to use foul language. I try not to get crazy with the topics that I talk about. And same thing with my YouTube, because one of my gripes and complaints is I watch even some of the guys that inspire me, especially Wes, whatever. I can't watch it around my kids because they're using bad language. They're talking about subject matter that's inappropriate. And so here's this Christian guy that's recording a podcast. I wouldn't let my kids watch that. And this is a Christian guy. And then he's got these girls on his podcast that are dressed a little lewdly, and he's like, they're getting into like, OnlyFans discussions and prostitution discussions, which I didn't watch the whole thing. I don't know if there's value there or not. But one of the things that I noticed, just again, I wouldn't let my kids watch it because that girl doesn't have enough of a shirt on. And then that just leads me to believe that dude's probably a little bit of a weirdo. But Mr. Smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol is talking to them about certain things. And where was I going with that?
I just have to interject that one of the things like that Wes said at the beginning, like he doesn't have any vices, right? He also at the beginning asked that guy how much money he had, and the guy literally couldn't answer. He said maybe the $5 in my pocket. One of the major things that you talk about with like potential clients and stuff like that is if you don't have the money to invest and better yourself to get to the gym, you probably shouldn't be spending it on alcohol and cigarettes. And that's just something that like I have to throw out there. Like if your family is struggling or whatever's going on, like I get it, things are tighter. That should be one of the first things to go.
Hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a month can be spent on tobacco and alcohol and eating out. And I've asked this before, like to a potential client, let's say that's super overweight, that's complaining about the price of a fitness program. How much money did you spend on excess calories to get overweight to the point where you're at? And that's something that a lot of people don't think about is, I did actively destroy my body. It wasn't something that just happened. Just like the fix isn't something that just happened. They actively drank the alcohol, smoked the cigarettes, spent the money on the fast food, on the extra calories. So it's going to probably take some money to reverse it if you want to be productive and expedite it.
Going back to the success.
Yep.
When he says success across the board, he doesn't have strip clubs, he doesn't have drugs, he doesn't have alcohol, he doesn't have cigarettes, he doesn't have any of these.
That's successful in this era.
He doesn't have any of those things. One, taking his money, taking his time from his family, taking time from his work. He doesn't have any of those things to distract him. And I believe that if you're out there drinking and smoking and wasting your money, but you can't say, I have money for things like that, it's gotta go. You have to prioritize.
All of which I used to do. I used to drink alcohol. I used to smoke cigarettes. We used to eat burritos and pizza and blah, blah, blah. And I wasn't in the greatest shape. So I'm not coming from a place of holier than thou, but I'm coming from a place of I changed my habits, right? And what
we've realized, you don't need any of that to have a good time.
No, you really don't. You don't. So I remember where I was going at the beginning about how, the subject matter, I wouldn't let my kids watch it. He's sitting in the studio drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, which I was just watching it going, I couldn't believe it, right? I think that's just weird. even as like a non-Christian, you could probably be like, oh. And then you're just going to like super tough claim Christianity, but that's like the look that you're putting out. I have a problem with it.
Not a good look.
But also the clips that I've heard of him on podcasts where he's talking about, you know, his wife, his baby mama, and like how many relationships that he's been in, and like if the paternity test came back such and such and he called her a name, like it just kind of blew me away. So I have a bone to pick with that guy. The fact that he even claims Christianity and he's not actively trying to make those positive changes in his life, and that's the image that he's giving people of what it means to be a Christian. I didn't like that at all. I thought that was gross.
Yeah.
So just extra fuel to the fire of like, I think Wes brought value, and I don't think that guy brings any value to anybody. I really don't. Another thing that he said, which I talked to you about, one of the things was one of these girls, I don't know, OnlyFans girl or something like that, was and this was like on his Instagram, like he was proud of it. She's like, I just don't think that your approach is very kind or very Christian. And then this guy says, kindness isn't a Christian virtue. To which I went, 2 Corinthians, let me look it up for you so I don't butcher it. My mistake, 1 Corinthians. I married her sister and our brother-in-law. I was the, what do you call it?
The officiant?
I was the officiant at their wedding, and I read this, and it's, I have it mostly memorized, but I didn't want to butcher it. It's 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. Yeah, that guy didn't display any of that on the Fresh and Fit podcast or his Instagram or his own podcast. So the bone has been picked. That's my opinion. Someone said, the first guy said, what did you think of Wes's performance?
Yeah.
Was it performance on the Fresh and Fit podcast? To answer your question, homeboy, I think he did great and he provided a lot of value. Probably ruffled some feathers and good. Mm-hmm. Any closing remarks?
No.
No? Mm-mm. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm Taylor Thrasher.
I'm Laura.
Stick around for more content. It's not always going to be like this. Hopefully it's not like this again. Like I said, I've never made a video like this before, and I don't intend to make it in the future, but if I feel compelled to put something out there and share my opinion because I think it could change some perspectives, you better believe I'm going to do it. See you on the next one.